Hey YouTube. So I'm noticing a little bit of a trend in the bicycles that I cross on the path. Is they're starting to treat them like they're cars. I think they got to have all these accessories on the front of the bar that ends up to just making a clutter bike. And I told this last guy that I talked to, about a week ago, he had all these lights and all this crap on his bike, and I guessed he had probably 20 pounds in accessories on his bike. And he asked me how to get more range. I said, take all that stuff off. And he looked at me, he goes, what if I ride at night? And I said, well, then you put your lights on when you know you're going to ride at night. Just adding weight. The next thing is, if you're going to add weight, add it to the back of the bike where it's behind you, so that it doesn't add all that wind resistance onto the bike. It's more or less shielded by your body, so it doesn't really have as much of an effect on it. And now I'm going to talk about springtime maintenance and flat tires. We're going to talk about flat tires. As you see, I have a tube in my hand. I wish I had one that already had holes in it so I could show you, but I haven't had a flat tire on. In 2,500 miles, I haven't had a flat tire. Well, 2,700 miles. I have not had a flat tire on this bike, not even close. There's a couple reasons for that. It's riding style, knowing when to pick up your butt off the seat and transfer your weight back and forth. That'll keep you from getting a pinch flat on your tire if you're running lower pressure. I'm not. I'm running 50 so pounds in these tires. They're rated to 65, and I run less than the maximum. If you run the maximum on these gravel trails, it just makes it a rough ride, and you're more likely, if there's a nail or glass or something on the trail, to cause a hole in the tire. So there's a couple ways you can tell on your inner tube. When it's deflated, it'll look like this. It'll be flat and whatever. You guys know what a deflated inner tube looks like. So if on a pinch flat, what happens is the tube gets pinched between the tire casing and the tire casing and the rim, and the rim causes an abrasion that causes a hole in the tube. Most cases, it's always going to be on the rim side of the tube, and you'll notice that it'll look like a snake bite. They call it a snake bite flat. If it's in all the other kinds of flats are mainly going to be, except for one, are going to be on the outside of the tube where the tire casing is. If you have a hole there, then you also need to take the tire and rub your hand around it very carefully and find whatever caused the hole in the tire. I'm not saying that it's still going to be there. It can be just a sharp rock, but it may be there. So if you have a hole on the outside of the inner tube, you're looking for something in the tire. Sidewalls blow out. Overinflation can cause the sidewall to blow out, and that's mainly what causes sidewall blowout is overinflation. It can also be just from wear. Bike tires, like most things, like say RVs, sit for a long time, don't get used, and then they get used, and then you end up with a sidewall blowing out when you fill up the inner tube. And the last type of flat I want to talk about is from the rim tape not being proper. For some reason, I noticed a trend, not just in electric, in other companies, where they're putting these plastic rim tape that is made from the same kind of stuff that China uses to band up boxes. You know, you've seen them when you get something from China and there's a yellow strap around it to keep the box together if it's heavy. Well, they're using that on bicycles now. The problem is although if it was proper and they designed it to use for a bicycle, they would have rounded the edges on the outside and we wouldn't be talking about this. But they don't. They take a strapping machine and they put a strap around it, tighten it up, use however melting method they use to connect the two pieces, and then they take a hot deal and poke a hole through it where your valve stem comes through. Now, the hot part where they poked a hole through it where the valve stem is fine because it's not usually sharp. It's usually melted, so it's kind of rounded. But when they take that rim tape that's strapping, it may be wide enough, it may cover all the spokes, but what's happening is if you let your bike, the pressure in the tire go down, it'll push that rim tape around and expose a sharp edge. So 90% of people who get their bike and ride it the first time and has a flat tire, even if they adjusted the tire pressure before they left, 90% of them are straight up the rim tape failing and causing a cut. And if you look at your inner tube and find the hole in the inner tube, if it's on the rim side and it's on the left or right edge of it, it's going to be the rim tape. This bike has plastic rim tape, but not strapping. It's also, the old wheels were also set up to be used as tubeless. And when they do that, they use a plastic tape on it usually. So I just transferred, when I got these wheels, I just transferred the rim tape from the other rims to this one. These are not designed to be tubeless. So, them are the main ways you can tell what's caused your inner tube flat. If you're getting your bike from electric, the first thing I would tell you is to take it to a shop and tell them to fix the rim tape on the rim. Even if it doesn't cause you a flat on the first ride, it will eventually cause a flat. Karen had a flat on her electric XP step through. She had one in the first 7 miles of riding. Ended up having to go home and get a vehicle because at that time we didn't even have it, and it's really hard to change a inner tube on that bike when it's out on the trail anyway. So you could repair it. But in her case, it was the same thing, the rim tape. The first thing I did was call electric and complain to them. You know what they told me? This was, of course, 4 years ago. Flat tires happen all the time. Well, I could tell by their inexperience as a company, flat tires are not a normal event. If you live in Texas or you live somewhere where there's cactus, needles and spikes and stuff like that, maybe I'll give it to you. But in most places, a flat tire is doesn't happen often. In my hundreds and thousands of miles of riding a bike, I've maybe had 10 flat tires. And most of them happened in Texas when I was stationed down there. The roads were terrible down there. Texans back then used to think beer bottles were for this. When you emptied your beer when you were driving, you threw it on the side of the road, and for good reason, because if you don't have the empties in your truck, they can't, unless you really smell like beer, they can't do much to you. So, yeah, Texas was rough. But like in Germany, I very seldom, I mean, flat tires, I can't even, probably maybe 2 or 3, and I used to ride 1,200 miles just commuting back and forth to work, 1,200 miles a month on my bike, and flat tires were rare, and that was on a road bike, which is even more prone to getting a flat than these wide tire bikes. But I thought I'd talk about flat tires. So the things that you should carry on your bike: if you're an electric owner, you should have a crescent wrench, an Allen wrench set, and inner tube and a pump. Whatever kind of pump you want. I see some carrying electric, but to me that's just overkill because I get a flat tire once in a while. So I have my inner tube. Can't show you the rest of the stuff because the camera's on the back seat. I have a pump. It was kind of expensive. It can mount on the water bottle bosses. In this case, I carry it in the bag. Cell phone holder is in the bag itself. I tried a bunch of different brands, and I just felt losing the phone off. I've lost the phone off every brand we've tried, and in one case it ended up costing me money to get the phone fixed. The screen broke, so I don't use phone holder anymore. So the only other thing on my handlebar is a water bottle holder, because the one that's down on the seat tube is too low for me to routinely reach. If I put a really long water bottle in it, maybe. But then again, it would also make the step through. I'd have to step higher to get onto the bike, so I opted for one on the handlebar. And that's the only thing that, other than what was on the bike when I bought it, it's on the handlebar besides the mirror. And I use, it's called Miracle Mirror. It's goes in the bar end. It's really stout. You can hit stuff and survive. So so you need a crescent wrench, you need an Allen wrench set. The Allen wrench set I have has a chain breaker on it, 6, 8, and 10 millimeter wrench. The chain breaker, which I really don't need for this, but it's on there. A Phillips screwdriver and a regular screwdriver. I use one I bought at Bontrager, one I bought at the, I use a Top Peak bicycle wrench set. So it's a multi-tool. Top Peak makes good stuff. Here's some brands you should always look for when you're doing bicycle repair. Park Tools, they're the number one bar. There is nobody better than Park Tools. Top Peak for pumps and on the trail repair tools. For gloves, Giro. For seats, anything Italian. I'm telling you, if Italian, it's going to be expensive, but if it's an Italian seat, they don't make crap. So, and then the name brands are Shimano. Almost every bike that you're going to see out there is going to have a Shimano part on it. Shimano and Campanello are the best companies. Campy for short. Bosch makes probably the best mid-drive system, and I think they are going to get into hub drive motors like most of you have, but mid-drive is for the everyday guy that's going to go out and ride hills and trails and stuff and not have to worry about overheating his hub drive. So if you did your winter maintenance, or you did your fall maintenance where you cleaned your bike up, you didn't really need to do anything but add chain lube and air to the tires when you started this spring. I didn't do it. I rode clear into December 24th was my last day, and in December the 24th I weighed around 271 to 272. Today, after riding for 2 weeks, I'm back down to 275. I didn't exercise from December clear into April because I was told not to. So now Well, I'm gonna call it a video. You guys have a good day. Like and subscribe.